Welcome to Balancing Life's Issues, the podcast. I'm your host, Kai, and today we are kicking off Black History Month, and to help me do that, I'm joined by BLI Senior Trainer, Account Manager, and DEIB Contributor, James Francis. Welcome to the podcast, James.
Thanks, Kai. Great to be here.
Wonderful to have you as always. And James, you and I have been planning this month of programming for a while now. People are really eager about our message this month, and it's great to finally be at a place where we're just sharing what we've been planning, right?
Yes. Love it.
the why behind Black History Month. So James, please, in as concise a way as possible, share with us why we should care about Black History Month.
Well, first of all, this should be a month of celebration. Really celebrating the accomplishments, all the various achievements in different areas in this country and around the world. And that is really the why of Black History Month. There are many people, right? There's slavery, there's MLK, but there's so many other wonderful things in between that, right? So many resilient people who've led us to where we are today as a country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And I think really kind of circling that celebration, acknowledging, right, what the Black community has been through to get to this point. And really what you're saying is let's find some folks that you probably don't know about and let's talk about them. Let's share their story so that you can pass that information along. And later in the podcast today, we're going to get into that person, and that was Carter G. Woodson. So speaking of history and education and justice, can we talk about the role that plays in Black History Month?
Absolutely. In a time and a space where factual things that have happened in the Black community in this country, they're trying to be removed and erased. Mm-hmm. I feel we must not forget.
Right.
These impactful moments in time lead us to where we are today.
Right.
Right? Recalling just the multiple massacres in this country directly taking place in Black communities to really undermine generational wealth, right? Mm-hmm. One of the most popular ones is the Tulsa Massacre, but there were others. Mm-hmm. In Michigan, in Mississippi, California.
Most recently in Buffalo.
In Buffalo recently, in Wyoming, in Missouri, in Kentucky. These are the pieces to the puzzle that are vastly important. And these are certain things that should certainly also be discussed why we are celebrating so strongly Black History Month.
Mm-hmm. And so after saying all that, your heart starts to hurt a little bit, but then you end with celebrate. And I know you and I were talking about this idea of how negative things happen in our lives. And when we are resilient, then we can celebrate. And that's what we're talking about this month.
Absolutely. And resiliency should be celebrated on all accounts in the Black community in this country. It's a continuous process. I feel even today, I am feeling the continued sense of resiliency throughout, my life and specific achievements. A quick story for you guys. This was just a few years ago. And my boss simply asked me to move her vehicle from one parking space to another. Mm-hmm. And, at the time, I gave her, a no. No, thank you. I'm not comfortable doing that. She didn't understand why.
Yeah, what was the why behind that, discomfort?
Yes. So, full transparency, it was a beautiful red Mercedes-Benz. Mm. And I'm a father of twin girls. And I thought about my life.
Right.
I thought about my life, Kai, literally how me moving a car 100 feet can change my life and my family's life dramatically. Just if someone is having a bad day and I am the one who is taken out on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that has happened. That is part of Black history is the issues with policing and things that community has dealt with. And to me, what I'm hearing out of that is, well, what's the role of an employer or a CEO to be aware of a community's history so that you can be more empathetic and less quick to judge in a moment where, an employee could be uncomfortable based off of type of request?
Well, To me, it's the ability and willingness to listen.
Mm.
Right? My boss, she heard me out. She really listened to me, and it grew into a sense of empathy and understanding on both parts. We as human beings, Kai, we only know what we know.
Right.
So that open-ended conversation that continues today between us, that moment really sparked these conversations.
Yeah, and you said listen, and what that reminded me of was after the murder of George Floyd, I learned how to listen. I found myself screaming into a social media void about, what had occurred and the atrocities. And I learned how to listen. And to me, that's what this month is about. Like, let's celebrate Black history. And for those of us who don't know much about it, or even if you are part of the Black community and you don't know much about it, like, this is a time to listen and educate ourselves so that we can celebrate American history together.
Yes, and it's a wonderful time because even myself, as a Black male, I am continuously learning about other contributions within our culture and our country by other Black people. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just to put it out there, something that kind of hit me. You and I were chatting the other day, getting ready for this, and I just kind of brought up the fact that the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, and then I kind of asked what year you were born. What year were you born?
1975, Kai. Thank you.
But you're the youngest of siblings, so my
Yes.
point was you had siblings who were born in a time where they wouldn't have been able to vote.
That's correct.
It's just a profound way to think about how close this history still is to us today.
And I completely agree. And sometimes, even myself, I may not view that lens and that perspective, but it's absolutely correct. I've had brothers who were born in a time where our parents couldn't vote.
Mm-hmm.
Our aunts, uncles, heaven forbid, grandparents. My mother specifically was born and raised in the rural South before moving up north to New York City. And I remember the stories.
Yeah.
I remember the stories.
Right.
Absolutely.
So let's take that energy, right? The stories that maybe your family shared with you from a time, right? And let's continue that sharing of stories and information and celebration of Black history as we kind of seamlessly segue into the person we want to talk about today. That's Carter G. Woodson. By the way, this is all taken from Smithsonian. Is a great resource for Black History Month. But Carter G. Woodson is widely considered to be the father of Black history. And it's interesting why. Do you happen to know why?
I honestly do not.
So Carter was a son of former slaves, and he taught himself English fundamentals at 19. And he earned a 4-year high school degree in 2 years. Okay, so we're off to an impressive start, right?
Absolutely.
Went on to get a master's in history from the University of Chicago and later a doctorate from Harvard. So this is someone who immersed himself in history. And it was through his studies where he discovered that Black history was mostly being left out of textbooks. He took it upon himself to write Black Americans into the nation's history with the founding of the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. And through that, he developed Negro Week in 1926, celebrating Black history, which expanded into Black History Month in 1976, just a year after you were born.
That's right. Great times.
Yeah. So why February? Well, to Carter, it celebrates the birthdays of two great Americans that helped change the trajectory of the Black American population. The abolitionist Frederick Douglass on February 14th and President Abraham Lincoln on February 12th. We wanted to choose him for two reasons. One, you may or may not know about him. But two, we are seeing a foundational shift in how Black history is taught in our schools today. And you touched on this a little bit earlier. There are organizations out there who are trying to water down the negative parts of our history to kind of soften the blow of lessening the impact of systematic issues that Black Americans have today.
Correct. And Kai, I think that's really the overall goal of, these certain things that are happening, in the state of Florida currently. So, to me, the conversation should stem from the racism, stem from the oppression, and explain the resiliency in a people and where we are today versus, that didn't happen, or the way that things happen can be explained in a different light. It's so interesting. Rosa Parks was not the first Black woman not to move on the bus. It became extremely popular as she was a part of the movement with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh,
She
wow.
was not the first. Yes.
I didn't know that.
So, things like that, deeper into our history books or our lessons of African American history in this country, to even know that part. So just imagine in 50, 60 years, because this was not that long ago. Imagine a textbook being written and speaking about the first black president in this country and not mentioning that he was black.
Yeah.
That's the direction I feel we're going, unfortunately. And this is why we continue to celebrate Black History Month and Black history achievements throughout this country. This is why.
Absolutely well said. And, I think we got to end it on that note. Couldn't say it any better. So everyone out there, look forward to a weekly podcast celebrating Black History Month. And, take it upon yourself to go do some research on some of those sites I mentioned earlier, like the Smithsonian, and just pick someone. If you're a parent, pick someone together and kind of share together and discover together this important American history. And of course, James, I got to throw it out there, on Friday, February 23rd, you are delivering a free live webinar titled DEIB, Navigating the Difficult Conversation. I'll be on that to host. Is there anything you wanted to say about that presentation at the end of the month?
Just please join me. These are the typical exciting conversations we will have, and come away with resources and really tools to navigate these difficult conversations.
Absolutely. I love it. And registration info is available at bliinfo.com/free webinars. James, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Kai.
Yeah. Until next time, everyone, take care. This has been a production of Balancing Life's Issues with your hosts, Kai Sorensen and Wendy Wallner. Produced by me, Kai. Rate, leave a review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen so you can get brand new episodes as they drop. Got an idea for the show? Email me, kai@balancinglifesissues.com. Anything to add, Miles?